Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. We're live here in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey with a vibrational healer. And
Englewood, not Englewood Cliffs.
Englewood, New Jersey. I'm going to have to change that. Billy Martin, what an honor. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, man.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Mr. Herman, Alan Herman was your first drum teacher, and the studio space that we're in right now is named after him. But I just want you to talk about what, if any, what was the most salient thing that he taught you? Because the truth is that for people out there, Billy was not like, you were a Roman Catholic school, didn't work out, academics was not that fun. Drums was the first time that you learned that it was something you could learn. How did Alan help that?
Alan just had a very, I guess out of all the things, down to the essence of Alan Herman is that you're treated like anyone else, like you're just as important. So coming in there as an 11-year-old, you know, he treated me as an equal, and it just opened things up right away. I felt accepted right away, and he just pretty much got right down to the physics of how the stick bounces and things like that. So he really did start with technique, but it was really this sort of then later in the 80s, and then, you know, 10 or so years ago. And every time we meet, it's like we reconnect and sort of catch up. The last time we caught up, he was very much into what I was doing, which was playing the drums in my own way, with my own voice,
Right.
and collaborating with people who were, you know, true artists at what they did. And that drew him back into the love of you know, what he loved about music. He left music because he was very disappointed by the commercial aspect taking over, music. He was very much part of Broadway and like those kind of things. So he was disenchanted, and when we reconnected, he saw that this whole other scene was happening, this community of experimental musicians working together in the downtown scene in New York, and I was right in the center of it. So that inspired him. It also inspired him to get back onto the drum set and also think about teaching again. And he saw me already as a teacher myself.
Wow.
And getting other people to sort of bring their voice out. It wasn't about technique. Which is interesting is that Alan really felt this connection to me that had nothing to do. He would always tell me like, your technique is incredible, and I would be like, I don't care about technique anymore. Like you helped me out with that, but like I don't sit around. So we connected on that level of like, just drummer as a composer, as an artist, and all that. That's something Michael Carvin used to tell me. You're a composer, like you start thinking about composition when you're playing. So Alan really related to that, and we worked on this Life on Drums DVD project that I created. It's basically a master class that he helped fund and became my co-host on. So that was the beginning of our, partnership to get the message out to drummers. You can find your own voice, your own way of playing, and so that's how when we discuss these things. And that was the beginning. And then this is sort of where we left off here. Is like another project of let's create a space that people can come to and they can study, and we can have classes and things like that. And he set me up with the initial funding to get this going, and then I kickstarted the rest. So this is a space to bring in people to study, to have performances, people to exhibit their work if they need to, whatever artistic endeavor, I'm open to it.
I want you to go a little bit deeper on this, like bringing their own voice out, the drummer's own voice out. You give an example, you don't have to mention names, but what are the best ways to do that? Because so many are, essentially, they're learning in academia. They don't have the bandstand opportunities that you did. I'm actually curious about all the road dog work you did even before Medeski Martin, but they don't have those experiences anymore. So how do you pull out their own voice? How long a process does that take? I'm sure it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't take long at all. If I get someone in a room with me, just in a private lesson, that's probably the most effective way, or in a class. But in a room with one person, I can sort of get them to start soloing, right? Improvising. They have to understand that improvising is something that everybody can do. When we talk, we improvise, and it's not scripted. And if even if you think you want to tell someone something, it comes out in a different way, and then you get a reaction from someone, then you got to deal with that reaction, and that's an improvising duo right there with someone. When you're just talking, it has nothing to do with being a musician.
Right.
So anybody can improvise, and everybody improvises. So that's the beginning, and then I just tell them, like, make sound. It's just make sound and leave some space and make some more sound and just start piecing together some kind of story narrative, as abstract as that might sound, and it probably will. It is a way to get people to just say something with their instrument, any instrument.
But I mean, take that application to the bandstand when you're working with cats that you don't necessarily know. I mean, it's one thing to do it in here. How do you get them comfortable on the bandstand, or is that something they just have to figure out on their own?
Well, it depends on what the band is there for. But in general, if you just get a band together and you want to get them playing, and if they're students, I'm just tell them make some sound and listen to each other and have a conversation and leave some space and There's the rhythmic connection, there's the harmonic connection, there's...
What about the idea of when you basically said, I'm kind of done with technique, I want it to feel good? Yeah. Can you talk about that evolution? Yeah. Because, I mean, what I'm saying is I talked to Denny Sywell, who was Paul McCartney's first drummer in Wings, and he was with Ndugu Chancellor, rest in peace, and they were watching this cat who was like 20 years old, just 20 on fire, you know, like just chops, facility everywhere. And then he looks over and Ndugu's snoring. He's passed out. It was boring. Yeah. How did you liberate? Was there a defining moment? How did you get to a point where you said, I'm just going to throw the tech, I'm not going to be sloppy, but I really care more about the feel than the technique?
Well, you know, in the 1980s, I graduated high school in 1981, so the 80s was a tough time to try to find your own voice for a teenager.
Explain to the cats that are younger.
In the 80s, there was a lot of studio work, and there were a lot of commercial records that were very popular. And so if you read Modern Drummer magazine, if you were, you know, some kind of drum magazine, they usually like putting people on the cover that, like, you know, could just, like, you know, had really good technique,
right,
and could read and sort of like really just, you know, and I, you know, thought this is what it is. This is what it's about right now. And then I got into it for a while, but I realized, you know, there was no, I wasn't getting as much from it. But let me just go back. Really what was happening was there was a lot of focus on technique. And more the music industry and what seemed to be popular with other drummers is like how fast they could play, and, you know, their chops, and it was very...
And how loud they could play with no dynamics almost.
Yeah, it was very disheartening for me. I really didn't feel really good about it, and no matter what genre, there was always some drummer that was so popular because they could play so fast and they had such good technique. But they were like tools for other songwriters and composers to use, and they were good at it, you know. But I didn't really hear anything coming from their drumming, you know. There wasn't any. It wasn't like, you know, Art Blakey or Max Roach or, you know, Philly Joe or Danny Richmond or you know, Elvin or Roy Haynes or Jack DeJohnette or a lot of African American drummers were very inspiring.
Donald Duck Bailey.
These guys, you know, really had a very distinct sound and personality. So that's what I thought was interesting. But really, it was I was just getting sick and tired of hearing a bunch of musicians play really fast and say nothing.
Basically wanking it.
Yeah. Speaking loud, saying nothing.
Speaking, there we go. The conversation, but it's just one way, right? Yeah. Not really having a conversation.
Yeah. So I was, you know. The music is so different in so many places, and why am I looking at this magazine and reading about these people who are famous because they played on somebody's hit record when there's so much else going on in the world? And that's when I realized I can curate my own thing. I can do my own thing like these downtown musicians. You know, and over time I just observed and I watched and I contributed and I learned from other players, and playing with Calvin Weston, you know, who played with Primetime and James Blood Ulmer. He played with Ornette.
Blood.
He played with the Lounge Lizards. That's how we met. And as soon as we played together, it was like it was a great, you know, marriage of, you know, two very different personalities that found this connection right away. And I learned a lot from playing with him. And that's what you do. You learn a lot playing. As a percussionist, I was playing a lot of percussion too in the 80s. So it really... But he gave me the freedom. He gave me a 10-minute solo every night. They walked off the stage. It was an incredible opportunity for me to work my shit out on this bandstand in front of these audiences
That's
that were
what I'm
kind of like a little bit, you know, not so open-minded. And they loved it. So I was getting somewhere, and I was developing this percussion thing, you know, on the job. So I was getting a lot of that work. That's what was happening. So whether I was touring with Chuck Mangione or doing gigs with Bob Moses or...
Let me ask you, how did
the same song differently every time they do it. I think some people, if that's what they want to do, that's what they should do. If that makes them happy and that makes other people happy, by all means do it. But I can't go on like that. I have to express myself. You know, I mean, like growing, it's like freestyle dancing. You know, like that's one of the sources for me that realized I'm an individual. I can dance to this hip hop music or whatever the DJ's playing in the clubs in the city and see how other people are expressing themselves and going, whoa, and then you come out there and you do something, and it's the same thing as playing your instrument. You can dance around that form, and you can still express that song. And you can go extremely radical, where you just have little breaking up the melody or the form of the chords, or you can kind of just make very slight variations every night. Change the swing, change the tempo. Do it in do a waltz instead of a 4/4. Figure out how that works. That was MMW. That's Modesty Martin Wood. That's what we did all the time. We would take these things and take them out of context. So I think it's really important, because you have to what it does is it gives you the opportunity to get to the essence of what the song is. And that, if there's anything that's great about improvising and playing a song differently every night, is like you start to realize, what is the hook? What is the most important thing? Is it the beat? Is it the chords? Is it the melody? Is it the combination? And how do you express that? It's no different than telling a story, to being a storyteller with words and sort of changing a few things around, but keeping the general message in there, the essence of things. So it's really it's an art form. It's an art form.
Did you find with Modesty and Martin and Wood, when you did the songs take on a life? I think when you're talking about the essence, it takes on a life of its own in a live setting when you're I guess you said taking it out of context.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, one thing that we got to very quickly was that, if we're going to play the same music every night, that we can't. That's going to be the end of the band. Right. Okay, guys. Right. Yeah, definitely. I don't want to play the same stuff exactly the same way every night. Let's mix it up. Let's express it in different ways. Let's at least change the set list every night. Some bands go on a whole tour and they never change the order of their songs.
Burn. It's a burn.
And I've been in bands like that, and it's depressing for me. I can't do that. I can listen to a great record over and over again. But
Milt Jackson and Wes Montgomery with Philly Joe on drums, you could listen to that all day, every day.
Yeah.
But it sounds different.
We're all human beings, so there's going to be something about your playing that's going to change, even if you try to play it exactly the same way. But it always comes from the commercial world, where people feel the pressure that they have to play exactly how that hit song was played on the radio or wherever they're hearing it, and it's just doesn't have to be the case.
Right. There's this line where Mike Clark said to me when he listened to Man-Child with Herbie, he said, "We sound like a backup band. We need a female vocalist." He's like, because what got to a point where you got a hit record, all of a sudden the producers wanted you to play straight beats, just straight beats, not yourself, but just play straight. Mm-hmm. And so you talk about, is there a way to thrive in live music settings, being yourself, thrive in a livelihood, and not have to bow out to the corporate mentality?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Modesty Martin Wood is a perfect example, because as soon as we played the first night we played together in my loft in Brooklyn, I knew that we have to play in front of people, and they're gonna like it. I just could tell. There's something about how we're playing and how we're really pushing the envelope, and how it's just so intense and can be emotional and cathartic. And so that is something that it doesn't matter really what you're playing. It's how you're playing. It's that feeling you're getting from the musicians. So it's not you have to play some formula. That's the death to me of the art form. There's no growth there.
No.
You have to push it. You have to push it, and you have to put yourself into it. And you have to lay it down in a way that's just man, this could be the last time I ever get to say anything, So, man, if you're going to say it, say something, just get into it. So I think that it's all about performance, and it's all about how you play, not what you play. And I think when you start thinking like that, then it's like the spectrum is wide open of what you can play on stage. People come to certain shows because they're expecting to hear that person play the way they play. If that person played exactly the same thing every night, they came to see that. That person's locked into something, unfortunately. But maybe that's good. But in general,
be right up in the front row feeling the amps. But for you, could you talk about an experience early on in your life when it became either as a receiver or an interpreter of the music, how it became a healing force for you?
well, I mean, it's healer, I mean, a receiver, interpreter, it's all like, I mean, there are many ways, healing is just a universal word for, getting, having, being uplifted, being energized, feeling like you're living, So music is a big part of that, like feeling like you're alive, that you're in something, that it makes you get up and move, or it makes you cry, or it makes you just well up inside.
Keeps you healthy.
Yeah.
Physically healthy.
Yeah. So I think it's, really important, and I think that there are many, just like any medicine, whether it's food and the right vitamins in the food, or the water you drink, or you get a little sun, you go for a swim, whatever it is that you're receiving, affects you in a different way. So when you're hearing music, when you're watching musicians play, you're getting something, you're receiving something special, and things resonate with you, other things don't.
What for you?
Question though. I'm
Yeah,
not
no.
sure.
I mean, no. Was it? The I was listening back to our radio interview, and you were talking about the first time that Alan sat you down. You realized you were actually learning something because school was not like you weren't getting off on school and academia, and
Yeah.
so it was that the healing. Was that the idea that saying, "Wow, this is something that I can actually groove with. I can learn it." Was that, or was there a time where it was? I don't know, just kept you healthy, kept you alive.
Well, there are many times, but I think, I think growing up, in a certain kind of like society where it's like you cannot do that.
Right.
You have to do this, and you can't go there until you go through all these steps, these linear steps, and it's just a bunch of bullshit, especially when it comes to music, because music is an oral, language. Music has been around for millions of years.
Passed down from teacher to student.
Music
That's
has
right.
only been around for 500 years.
That's right.
Or so.
That's right.
So that whole idea of you have to like look in a book or look at charts to be a musician is just nonsense. Music is just sound. It's just organizing sound and expressing yourself through sound. And for each person, that's it's gonna resonate with them at different times of their life and different music that they hear. So. I just think people have to be careful because sometimes there's a nostalgia make sound and just work on that. It's alchemy, you know. Make this thing vibrate, make that thing vibrate, put it together. That doesn't work, try this and that, you know, just mess around, you know.
You know,
Playfulness.
This space, the Herman House here in Englewood, New Jersey, is not designated only for drummers or musicians. It's for any type of artist. Is that right?
Yeah, any creative expression. You know, it's totally.
How do they find you, by the way? Just for people that are out there, what's the best way to connect with you?
Billy@creativemusic.org. That's the best way to reach me when it comes to all things. I mean, creativemusic.org is a foundation that I work for. So I always like to put that in the forefront, you know, as opposed to billymartin.net.
I love it. I think
billymartin.net. You go to that
Yeah,
website.
yeah.
You can find my email in there.
Oh, it's all about Billy.
Yeah.
No, this is about creative music and the creative music.
Yeah. It's it's I kind of try to welcome people with open arms, but it is a private space in my backyard, and if I get someone who wants to visit, I will make time for them eventually, you know, even if they want to just take a look. What is it like? I'd be happy to do that, you know, but there's so many hours and minutes to the day that I can do that, but part of my mission is to keep this place open so that we can invite people to observe like how the creative process works, have classes, have things, have scholarships so people can do things, have artist residencies, day residencies. And these are things I'm working on. So you just need to inquire and get on a list so that we can stay in touch, you know.
Absolutely. One final thing, could you heal me with a little bit of rhythm before we wrap?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it. Billy Martin. What an honor.